So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen. I'm Chef Shelly Meyer, and each episode I try and bring some new recipes, some unique ideas that you can use with game meat, a very lean and healthy protein. I want each of you to try out some of your own recipes using game. So continue to watch while I bring the forest to your table. So what I'm going to do for you today is actually wild pheasant. So I've got some pheasant breasts here that I'm going to do with a panko Parmesan lemon zest crust. And but before I get to that, we're actually going to brine it. So I've got brined pheasant breasts with the panko topping, and then we're going to pair that with Bloody Mary polenta and lemon zest Parmesan asparagus. So keep watching while we get cooking. Montana flavor to savor. We've spent a decade creating the best flavors with all natural ingredients, gluten-free, with no fillers or no preservatives. You can find the best flavors at Montana Flavor to Savor. Visit our website at www.mtflavortosavor.com. With an explosion of flavor that tantalizes your taste buds, there's only one way to experience the last best taste of Montana, and that's with Montana Flavor to Savor seasonings. Get yours today. So what we want to do is, I've got our pheasant breasts in the brine already, and how I prepared this brine is it's super simple. It's a ratio. It is 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt per quart of liquid. And so what you usually do is take 1 cup, because a quart is 4 cups, take 1 cup and get that simmering on the stove, and then add your aromatics and your seasonings. In this case I did peppercorns, I did some cardamom seeds, and I did salt and sugar, and let that steep for 30 minutes with that 1 cup, and then you add that 1 cup into the other 3 cups of ice water and let that cool down. And once it's cold, then you put your pheasant breasts in the brine. Now, a brine technique is an hour per pound, but it's not per pound in total, it's a per pound per piece. So these are about 4 to 6 ounce pieces of pheasant breasts. And so it's only going to take like 10 minutes in that brine. So I'm just going to let those sit for a couple more minutes. We're almost ready on that while I put together the topping that I'm going to use for it. So what I'm doing here is doing a panko Parmesan breading topping. And I'm going to add some of my herb seasoning. Let me get that. So I'm just going to kind of dollop some of my herb seasoning in my panko. And this is just your salt level, your flavor level as well. And then, perfect. Then I'm also going to add some lemon zest. So this is probably the zest of 1 lemon is what I'm going to do here. I like that punch on there. It's really, really awesome. And then some Parmesan. This is Parmesan Reggiano. And then to bring it all together, we've got melted butter. And we're just going to kind of moisten that and bring it together to where it'll kind of clump up and stay on top of our pheasant breasts. And make sure that I've got enough butter, and see how that's all clumping together, so that's going to be really nice. I'm going to set that aside for now. Grab that little dollop of extra butter. I like that. Let me clean my hands really quick. And then let me go ahead and get my asparagus ready. So first time I ever had asparagus, I was actually a little girl, and my grandmother taught me how to go out and forage for wild asparagus. So this is in Montana on the side of the roads, and we would take a walk together, and she taught me how to look for asparagus and went home and cooked it. She also taught me how to find mustard greens and stuff like that. So my grandmother, shout out to her, she taught me how to forage. So it's wonderful memories I have of her. So I'm just going to toss that with a little bit of zest and also a little bit of Parmesan and olive oil. And then also I'm going to add in some of my herb seasoning to this as well. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to put it on the sheet pan and get it ready for the oven. I'm just going to do it in a single layer, and then I'm going to add just a little bit more Parmesan on top of it. So we get a nice, beautiful little crust of Parmesan when it comes out of the oven. It'll crisp up, it'll be delicious. And because these are really thin spears, it won't take long at all in the oven. So I'm going to set that aside. And now, let me work on getting the pheasants out of that brine. And so what I'm going to do is just going to kind of pat them dry a little bit so we take some of that moisture off of the pheasant breasts. And these are wild pheasant breasts that my husband harvested for us. I brought them to show you today and cook for you. There's nothing more organic than wild game. So this is what I grew up eating, was wild game. And when I met my husband, that's how he courted me, was by cooking me wild game. So we're just gonna pat those dry. And this is one of those easy recipes. It just goes in the oven. So once we pat it dry, I'm gonna add a little bit of seasoning to it. Just like always, we're gonna develop those layers of flavor. And so on this one though, I'm gonna hit it with my seasoned salt. So we're just gonna use the seasoned salt on this. And because they're so thin, I'm just gonna do it on the one side. Just like that, because we do have seasoning in our topping too. So now what I'm gonna do is just put these right on the sheet pan. And I'm going to kind of put them close together but not crowded. But the reason is, I'll show you in a second here. Let me get rid of that. The topping I'm going to put on. Perfect. Now you got to kind of use your hands a lot in this recipe. But I'm going to compress it with my palm and then put it on top. I'm going to work away on all four and get all of them topped like so. Okay, so I know this is not really a traditional, what you would think of as Parmesan, like if you do chicken Parmesan or so forth. This is a little bit untraditional preparation, but trust me when I say it is so delicious. My clients rave over it. They love it when I make this for them. And I'm doing it with Bloody Mary polenta, and we'll get these in the oven and then we'll get started on our polenta. So we're gonna get started with our polenta. I've got the Bloody Mary, spicy Bloody Mary mix already starting to simmer, and then we're gonna add our polenta in there. And I'm also melting some butter because I like to serve this dish with velouté. So again, it's not traditional, but a little bit more interesting with a different sauce. Now I'm just gonna add some real polenta into that simmering liquid. And polenta is one of those things that gets kind of tricky. You got to kind of pay attention, but having a square bottom, flat bottom wooden spoon works really well. So now I've got my butter going. My velouté is, we're going to make a roux with butter, equal parts butter and flour. And then it's stock. And I've got some homemade vegetable stock here I'm going to use. We're just going to kind of make that little blonde roux going there. And once that kind of cooks out, you want to kind of keep it moving, otherwise you're going to go into a brown roux because it starts to scorch, and that's delicious too. There's nothing wrong with the brown butter roux. And now once that looks about right there, I'm actually going to add a little bit of stock at a time because I don't want to create clumps. So I want to have that just start to go, get it thickened just to the right amount. We're going to get that heated up little by little. And again, add a little bit of stock at a time because the stock is cold. The way you could speed this up is if you had the stock already hot, and then you could add it in and it wouldn't be such a shock to that butter and flour mixture. But this makes a smooth, elegant sauce when you do it this way. So we don't have any clumps. Clumps are evil. It's like if you're fly fishing, they say slack is evil. You don't want any slack in your line. Clumps are evil in cooking. So I'm going to turn my pan down back there with the polenta. So I really like this polenta recipe with this Bloody Mary mix. It just adds that kind of the tomato element that you might be missing with chicken Parmesan, but you can make polenta, again, it's a ratio. It's a 1-to-4 ratio is what I like, 1-to-4 or 1-to-5, because then it's not solid, but it's perfect amount of movability on your polenta on your plate. So that's looking good. This is looking better. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and incorporate the rest of my stock here. And then we're just going to let these kind of cook. So I think our pheasant and asparagus is ready to come out of the oven. Let's get that looking at. Yes! So, baked Parmesan pheasant. And Parmesan lemon asparagus, a nod to Grandma. So let's get plating. We're actually going to finish off my Bloody Mary polenta, and I'm just going to do a little bit of butter and a little bit of Parmesan to just kind of finish that off and enrichen it. So once we get that all incorporated in there, then we can plate. So this is the perfect dish to plate family style to serve on the dinner table. So let me get that started. What I'm gonna do here is just put some of my Bloody Mary polenta down. We're gonna get enough for all 4 of those pheasant breasts. And I love the flavor that this Bloody Mary mix makes with this polenta. And polenta is a ratio thing, so you can use any flavorful liquid that you want. Have fun with it. It's such a healthy thing. So, get my hot pad here, because these are definitely hot out of the oven. And so I don't want to mess up my topping too much. So we're just gonna put that right on top of our polenta. Oh, smells good, looks good. Hope you brought your appetite. I know the crew did. And then what I'm gonna do is add my asparagus here off on the side. I maybe should have done a few more asparagus spears for family, but we can share. Sorry, they stuck on there a little bit because of that Parmesan cheese, but trust me, it's worth it. Now, the finishing touch. So I'm gonna put some of that velouté sauce over. And again, velouté, this is an episode of ratios. Velouté is a ratio. So you can get a tablespoon of flour, a tablespoon of butter, and make your roux, and that will thicken 1 cup of stock. So if you need more sauce, add more, make a better roux or a larger roux quantity, and you're ready to go. So there you have family style pheasant Parmesan crusted pheasant over Bloody Mary polenta and Parmesan asparagus tips. So thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen. I enjoyed plating a family-style dish for you today. I did brined pheasant breast. These are wild pheasant. I did a quick brine, and then I made a Parmesan crust over the top of Bloody Mary polenta. I made a quick little velouté sauce and some Parmesan lemon asparagus spears. If you want to catch me on social media, I'm at chefshellymeyer.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and you can get my seasonings at www.mtflavor2savor.com. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen, and catch me next time while I continue to bring the forest to your table.